Hello, I hope everyone is doing well. This video is about setting up your environment for the Rankin AWD 1000 Web Technologies course. Let's go over a couple things first before we start the setup process. Throughout this course, we will be using Google Docs. And the reason for that is so I can send you links to various documents, including labs, homework assignments, and other information, without you having to log into Inside Rankin every time. It should make things a little easier for you. If you don't have a Google account, you will need to create one. Next, let's look at how you can find out information about your PC if you do not know how to do that. One thing I want to review here with you. So here are the minimum specs suggested for the AWD program, and it's operating system of Windows 10, it's 64-bit with memory of 8 gigabits or more, and lots of disk space. Now, for this first course, this HTML CSS course, you probably get by on a lot less disk space for this course. But as we go through this program, each course is going to add more and more. So you want to just try to have as much disk space as possible. Okay. Let me show you a couple things here. I'm not sure people's different students' capabilities in some areas here. So if you go to your Windows, go to Properties here of your C drive, and here it'll show you your use space and free space on your drive. So I have a new computer, so I have a significant amount of free space. But I would imagine you probably have less than this, unless you've got a recent computer. I think the one thing to really look at is how much use space and free space you have, and if you're getting to the point where you don't have very much free space, I would see what you can do to kind of remove some things. Most of mine, about 80% of mine is free. So if most of yours is use space and you have very little free space, I'd see what I could do if I were you to try to free up some space. Okay. Another thing I wanted to kind of show you here. So if you go to on your computer, it depends on. I have Windows 11. Maybe most of you might have Windows 10, but some of you might have Windows 11. So if you go to your Start menu and then go to Settings, and from Settings you go to System, and if you go after you go to System, go ahead on the right side. You go ahead and scroll down to About. This will give you information about your computer. And so here's some information about mine. I end up making a screenshot and I just kind of blacked out of a little bit of private information here. But, it shows it's a 60-bit operating system. I have a lot of RAM here. You don't necessarily need this much for this course, but, I have a lot of RAM. And what RAM is if you're unaware of what that really means. So every time you use an application on your computer, let's say a browser, a game that you're playing that's installed on your computer, Microsoft Windows, all of them have to be loaded, right? And they get loaded into RAM, which is random access memory. So the more RAM you have, the more things you can do, and the more, the better the performance of doing those things because it can load more things into RAM. And I'm sure that you, like I have before, had been on a computer and all of a sudden things are going really slow, and then you kind of look around and you've got all kinds of things open. So, it's always a good idea if you don't have a lot of RAM, try to close things down that you're not using, right? Try to just have the things open that you are using. Another thing I did want to point out here is when we're downloading different software packages, different tools we'll be using in this course. Usually, we're downloading 64, 64-bit is pretty much the standard default one. But if for some reason you have a 32-bit system, you need to make sure that you download the 32-bit versions instead of the 64-bit. Okay, just wanted to point that out to you. So I guess we can go ahead and get started here. So like I said, we'll be using Google Docs a lot in this course. I'm not sure what your experience is with using Google Docs. It's a little different than Microsoft Word. So one thing is on here, like whenever see all these items on the table of contents here under the table of contents, these are all links to other places within this doc. And to get to any link, you click on it one time, and then you would see the link. You click on that link, and it will go in that document to that specific spot, right? And then when you have a link like this, you click that once. Same situation here. And this is an external link, right? And this will go to a tab. It will open this up in a new tab, okay? Just like in a browser, if you're real far down on a document or so forth, you can always hit Control Home to go to the top, Control N to go to the bottom of the doc. Just a couple little shortcuts, just wanted to make sure that people are aware of. So let's go ahead and get started installing some of the software. So this is the Visual Studio Code editor, and for those of you who already took the C# course, this is different than the regular Visual Studio that you have installed that you used for the C# course. This is a much lighter, smaller download than the full Visual Studio. So you'll also need to go ahead and download, even though if you already have Visual Studio, you'll also need to download this as well. Okay. So let's take a look at the setup things, which ones we're going to do when we get there. Okay. Got it. So just come in here, download for Windows. Our installation, it's already downloaded. So if we double click on this, it'll start the process. We need to accept the agreement. You need to choose what folder you want to have it. I'm just going to have it go into the default one. Default. Then here we want to choose create a desktop icon. We want to add open code action to Windows Explorer directory context menu. We want to get rid of that one. Okay, let's take another quick look to make sure that that's what we had here. Yes, that is correct. Add path. Okay. Click next. Click install. Should not take long here. It's really quick. Finish, and we'll go ahead and launch it on finish. So there's our editor. And what we'll do here is make this like that. Okay. Let's move this over so I can see everything here. Okay. So the first thing we want to check the settings for the tab. And this is when we're talking about tab size here. We're talking about when you're coding, and you go to the next line. You want to indent that piece of code. You click the tab, right? Hit the tab key, and you can change your tab setting. From my experiences and what I've used, and most of the developers that I know have always used 4. Some use 2, and it's really personal preference on that. I think 4 looks a little better. I think it's a little more cleaner and understandable. But it's personal preference. I think the important thing is, just make sure you're consistent. If your tab, you always want to keep your tab size the same for all your work. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and change our settings for tab size here. And it depends on what this is going to be. So we go down here. It's going to be either 2 or 4 in here probably. I prefer to have this as a 4. If you want to do 2, that's fine. But I'd prefer to have that as a 4. Okay. So we'll change that. Next thing is we're going to install these different code extensions. Okay. And so if you go over here on the left-hand side, you got these different icons over here. You go to this last one here is extensions. You want to click on extensions. Search for it, and then there's going to be like a little install, kind of like this one down here. If you look at down here, you got install. So if you wanted to install this one, you click install. But these are some of the popular ones that we think will be helpful for you to be using in this course. Like I said, you just search for it, click the install, and it'll install it. Pretty simple there. Okay. There are a few of these that require maybe some changes. And so like if we go to live server here, click on this gear icon and go to extension settings. This is one we want to change. It already had this is how it was. And like I said, since I already installed this once, I think it's picking up those changes from, even though I uninstalled it and reinstalled it. But I think when you go in here, it's going to be like this. You want to go ahead and get rid of that and make that localhost. Okay. And when you make those changes, you don't have to click save or anything. It automatically just saves it to what you changed it to. Okay. And for the prettier one, same thing here. Click the little gear, and we're going to go to extension settings. And we're going to go down. I don't know what this was. This might have been like 80, I think. By default, we're going to change that one to 120. Okay. And prettier single. And then make sure that you have the single quote text box here, check box, sorry, not text box, check box checked right here. Okay. Use single quotes instead of double quotes. All right. So we'll be getting into the specifics of using Visual Source Code in chapter 2, chapter and beyond. But this is just the initial setup, and we'll be discussing how to use this tool a lot more going forward. Okay, so you can close that for now. The next thing we want to do is install Git. Okay. And we just download Git for Windows. And this is the 64-bit. And if you have a 64-bit machine, you go ahead and just click this one to download. So I already have this installed on my computer. It was kind of installed at the system level. So what I ended up doing, I don't know if I mentioned earlier in this video, I don't think I did, but I ended up creating since I already had everything configured on my machine, I just created a new user, new window user, and then I switched user over to this new user. And and there's some certain things that were deployed, that were downloaded and installed earlier, that were under this, the system as opposed to the user. So I already have some things in there. I wanted to kind of have more of a clean slate so I could walk through a lot of these with you, but some of them were, like I said, installed at the system level. So it's I'm not going to actually, I'm going to walk through pretty close to actually installing this, but I am going to stop short of actually doing it again. Okay. I don't want to overwrite some things. So here I'm going to click here to download. And double click on the application to install it. So first you're going to select where you want to install. I'm just going to choose the default here. Click next. Click next here. Next here. Then here we're going to choose Notepad++ as default editor. Click next. Click next. 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 We do want to choose Get Credential Manager. So if it's not checked there, make sure you check that or select that. Enable file system caching. Click next. And then you don't want to use the experimental stuff. We'll just stick to the general stuff that's already available. That's currently available, I guess. And then go ahead and click install here. Okay. Like I said, I'm not going to do that for mine. I'm just going to exit here. So once that is installed, right, we come back here, and then we want to register at the GitHub Classroom and create your GitHub repository. So we're going to go here. Obviously, I'm all ready to go, but you'll end up going to a different screen, and it's going to, because you're not logged in, it's going to ask you if to log in or create a repository. So if you already have a repository that you want to use, you can go ahead and use that repository. But it's really best to have your username be first name, last name, just so it's easy for for myself, and just for us tracking and knowing who's doing what, right? So best to go ahead and create a new GitHub account. And after creating a new GitHub account, okay, after you create the new GitHub account, you go back here, then click this. Again, you'll come to GitHub Classroom, and this is where you're going to see a list of student names. Okay, you're going to go ahead and as long as you're logged into GitHub, if you're already logged into GitHub, and you go to this classroom link, you see a list of students. You want to choose yourself from that list. Okay, And then you want to make sure that you choose this. This is the repository you want. This all classroom, all coursework, one here. Okay. And actually, what I did is I put myself as a student, and I've already assigned myself to this. Okay. This is the accepted assignment, all coursework. If you click on this, you'll see here's on GitHub. This is the GitHub account. So the GitHub your account that you created, once you accept that assignment for that classroom, you should see these folders. Okay, and we'll get into all this later. Okay, just let me know if you have any problem getting to this point. All right. Click through the process. This is a different instructor's name here, but same concept. Okay. Then after that, we want to go ahead and install GitHub Desktop. We're going to download it for Windows 64-bit. Double click that. And here it's asking me to add a repository to GitHub Desktop to start collaborating. So you're going to go ahead and choose this all coursework one right here, right? And you want to choose clone this Rankin Technical College all coursework. Now, as far as this, you don't want to change this top one here, all right? Because that has to be the correct repository. But down here at the local path, you can have this to be whatever, wherever you want to be your starting spot. So this is where all your code's going to end up being, okay? Throughout this whole course. So this will be the starting spot. So, if you're fine with where it puts the default here, or if you want to choose your desktop, you can always choose your desktop as well. Okay. And that put desktop in there, and that will go on desktop. And then after that, go ahead and click clone. And this is a pretty big one. This has a lot of files in it, so keep that in mind. And there you go. Now this is in Git Desktop, right? GitHub Desktop. So one thing I did want to mention, I know that there's some students in here from the C# course, and I know that you had Jeff Scott in the previous semester, and Jeff Scott really uses the command line arguments, the command lines instead of GitHub Desktop. It wouldn't be a bad idea to also use this, get used to this. Me, myself, I also use a lot of the command line arguments for Git, just, using a terminal, doing the add and the commits and that all through, the command line, the bash shell there of Git. But, probably the easiest way to do this, and, another way, obviously, besides the command line stuff, is use GitHub Desktop. So, you might as well try this out as well. Okay. So we went ahead and cloned it. We did all of this. Okay, the next thing is to install Discord. Discord setup. So if you already have an account, you can go ahead and log in here. Okay. If you do not have an account, you need to go ahead and register. Okay. Either way, let me show you something. Either way here, either way, make sure you know that if you're using an alias such as like a gamer tag, if you already have an account, change your nickname in the server when you do get on the server. Just change your nickname to your first and last name so we know who you are within Discord. Okay, so once you create the account and log in to the desktop app, okay, go ahead and join this. And to join this, go ahead and just paste this URL, or you can actually just click that, right? And it will so that way will be associated with that server. Okay. I wasn't going to go through all that. I didn't think there's really a big need there. Okay. And then these here are pretty basic. Basic. Just go ahead and download Notepad++. Select all the default settings. And we kind of highly recommend using an ad blocker, especially we go to a lot of different things and stuff like that, a lot of different sites. And so it'd be kind of beneficial to use this ad blocker. The other one here, this last one here, this is a wireframes for desktop. This is where you can kind of like build your user interface, and it shows you how to you connect the different pages together and stuff like that. It's pretty helpful. And when you do that, we do have a license key for for the students to use, and so this one will expire at the end of December. But here's the license key to be able. Once you have that installed, you add the license key, and this is what you would put in the license key. Okay. And this one we won't be using right away. It'll be a little bit till we use this, but so there you have it. And please let me know if you have any questions and you're having any difficulties with getting that all configured. And besides that, have a good day. The next thing we'll do is start going through the chapters one by one. Okay? Thank you.